So again, thank you very much for joining us for this track. There will be 3 papers presented. The first one will deal with ethics issues that researchers should be concerned with when analyzing open source projects. And there will be another one trying to measure and quantify what different levels of openness. And then the last one will also be about the quality, in this case, of a empirical and applicable model quality. So I'll leave the floor to the next presenters, and again, just stick around the area of the camera. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher. I'm from Universität Berlin, and I'd like to talk about some questions I've been pondering as part of my PhD research. And particularly, what I'm doing is I'm doing a qualitative research into open source. It means I take a mailing list at the moment, and here I have a picture of my tool that I'm using. I read through them. I'm not doing any data mining, but manually read a lot of email. And I try to come up with new models that my concrete subject is innovations. I'm trying to see how new ideas make it into open source projects. And at the moment I'm studying the project and I'm trying to see how does, for instance, somebody introduce a new version control system? How do projects switch from Subversion to Git? Who brings that up? Why does it happen? Why does it get rejected? And as part of this research, I, of course, when I read the emails, I stumble upon stuff like this. For instance, I've been looking at the maintainers and the role of the maintainer as part of these innovation processes. And sometimes you see stuff like that. Next time I see crap like this, the maintainer is the committer. I'm going to somewhere later. I'm going to go postal on the next maintainer who doesn't understand what merging and fixes only means. And this is interesting stuff from my perspective because it highlights that the maintainer, in a lot of cases, is the king of the project. He can decide what goes on and what not. I've labeled that a little bit mighty maintainer syndrome, where a project maintainer really, he is the person who decides what will happen with innovations and not, and it's not so much democracy. And so I'm wondering, if I take an email like that, can I actually publish something like this? I mean, what would you think of the maintainer? Would he like to see something like that written about him? And because we all know, when I take a quote like this, and I type it into Google, I get one hit. I get this email, the email in which the person wrote that. And maybe you can guess which person I picked. This is Linus Torvalds. He likes to talk to his maintainers like that if they violate his merge windows. He explains to them in very much detail afterwards what they did wrong and how they can do better, but he has this style of being angry with them. And so you come to the point where, direct quotation is not good. Everybody will be able to find out who that person was. If you then go on, I looked at an old paper and I thought, okay, we never publish directly. We always paraphrase because we know if you take a direct quotation, people will be able to find out who that person was we were talking about. And so I looked at a paper I wrote some months ago and took this, it's a paraphrase quotation. I do not like wikis. That's not what the person actually said, but we paraphrase that. And if you search for that, you don't get any hits. The project, I even know the project where this came from. I do not like wikis. And so that looks like a possible way to get around this problem. You paraphrase the content, and that makes it more difficult to find who actually the person was you've been talking about. But in this case, if you spend 60 seconds and you try I dislike wikis and I hate wikis, then you find the person who wrote them. So maybe I did not paraphrase very well, but so you see that it's actually funny. It was an email from preparing for FOSDEM 2006, where the project coordinated their where will we meet for drinking beer using a wiki, and one person was I hate wikis, I really don't like them. So paraphrasing is also difficult because if you spend some time, you can find out who the persons are that are behind individual emails, who are behind the research results that you're reading. So this comes to the question, if we can identify individuals so easily from research results, is that really maybe a problem? Is there an ethical problem if you take that? And I know most of you are not doing qualitative research, reading email lists, so let's take a step back and look at other research methodologies. And do they have the same problem? Maybe. And here I focus on two. In the paper there are a couple more research methods. Here I looked at also at data mining and surveys. Data mining, lots of people do data mining. So is there a problem with data mining? One of the reviewers wrote, I don't understand, is there a problem? Might somebody be identified? And here is an example. I've taken results from a very well-known paper by Marcus et al., the case study Apache against Mozilla, and you find a graph like this. And this is typical what you get after you have data mined. It's logarithmic scale to show that 15 developers do have to work. This was the general hypothesis. And now let's have a look. I mean, those two developers all the way to the left, they're easily to be identified. And in this case, it's not so dangerous because this is just how much work they spend in which module. But let's think about something like who made the most, who introduced the most bugs in the project. Is this information that you maybe could read off a chart like this and be like, okay, you developer X, apparently you're producing bad software. Maybe we don't want you anymore in our project. And suddenly this information that we mined and we didn't see any problem in has now another dimension. Jesus in his talk had an example about a company would actually sue you if you publish that information. And you say, okay, this product has the most bugs. And the company would go to you and be like, well, that's a big problem. And now we're talking about individuals. So we have a problem. For surveys, in most cases you take survey data and you aggregate them, but in a lot of surveys you even find stuff where you could identify people as well. Here an example from a survey about motivations in open source. And the authors list the project names. And for some of the projects, you might not be able to identify a person from that. Like for Linux, there are 21 of those developers in Linux. But let's take something like, I don't know, MPLS for Linux, or like smaller projects where there actually might only be 3 developers. And it's very likely that the maintainer is probably the one who filled out that survey. So from that you could deduce possibly also some information about the people that took part in the survey. So this was just some points that maybe you should think about it. That also in the results that you publish, it might be possible to identify people. And so for my research, I was thinking, okay, what should I do now? I take these data and I want to do research with them. And so I looked into what people have actually been doing when they face these kind of problems, and stumbled upon these general principles. Universities apparently use them to choose whether it's okay to do these kind of research with human subjects. And so they say respect for persons, that we should grant them autonomy, and everybody should be able to choose for themselves whether they're part of this research or not. And yeah, we see, we don't ask if we data mine projects, or we don't ask, I didn't ask the project when I downloaded their mailing list and read through all of them. There should be benefits, like we should see, okay, what does it cost the project? What are the possible benefits? And a question like justice. So when, like best example is SourceForge, those poor projects that sign up with SourceForge, they get all the surveys, and those projects that did not sign up with SourceForge, they're probably a little bit more lucky that they don't get so many emails asking them to fill out. people I've been using. And so, yeah, this is a forum for research and community to talk about stuff like that. So I was hoping that we could come to the following discussion points. So, can we really take data that is publicly available, yet maybe not seen as that public? Like, for instance, in a mailing list, do people really expect that we take their emails, like process them, read through them, and publish them in papers? Is that okay? Is this data so public that we can use it? Second point, what might be the consequences? Are there consequences to publishing these data? I've brought up the example that if you've been identified as the worst project or the worst developer in a project, people might stop liking you. Maybe you might not get a job if people read in a paper that or can identify you. So what do people think that might be damaging to open source participants, and where do we have to, as Gregorio said, where do we have to draw the line? Where do we say this is okay to use, the data it's okay to use for these kind of purposes? It's okay if you aggregate it sufficiently. It's okay if you not publish results about the worst 500 projects of a 1,000 project data set. That's okay. What possible damages do we see, do open source participants see for them if they are published in a publication which later shows up at Linux World News? Third discussion point, how did you ever experience anything like that? In the beginning when I pondered the problem, I've been calling up people at our related departments and asking them, so when you do stuff like that, do you go through ethics review with that? And I know that in the US they have very strict rules for that every unique subject research needs to go to a review board and they need to have a stamp of approval. But at my university people were like, are you ridiculous? Why? No. This is public data. So I would like to know, like, have you ever experienced something like that? Have universities told you it's not okay to do? That would be very interesting. And the last point that also connects to Gregorio's talk about research friendly. What can we do? What shall we do? What must we do? Should we limit the number of surveys that go to a certain project? Do we want research results to be looked over by somebody who asks the question, okay, might there be problems for the persons that are mentioned in the publication? What do people feel like? Is there something we should care for? Is there a line? And how could we solve it? Do we ask projects to opt in before we do research with them? Sign up at Research Friendly, and this is the only point at which you receive surveys or opt-out lists? Or is it something that once the problem arises, we could we then look if we have to? Yeah, I wanted to keep this short, and maybe have some time to discuss or people to give the opinions what they think. Thank you.
There's something like really hard. Practice probably no one about 25 years. It's really just.
I don't hear anything. Probably any of the laptops.
No, it's just like really happy.
Oh, well, if no one else.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and take one question, and then we'll go ahead and get ready for the next presentation. So, anyone has maybe one? We probably have a lot of questions about this, but
Can
yes.
you tell us again why you got interested in that? Because I forgot. Why are you wondering?
Yes, the question was in the beginning. I have these quotations from people, and I'm wondering if I can just take them and publish them, or if there's a problem. That was the original concept. And then I thought, let's think about the problem in general a little bit, and then you open up a can of worms. Kind of.
It was like with the mail quotations that you can point out. Okay, so we'll just leave it as It says now, and we can just definitely catch Christopher offline and
Yes.
ask him more questions. on
Especially if somebody has experience with like ever having like been contacted or having to go through a review process for these kind of data, that would be very interesting to hear what your experience is. Thank you.
Are you there at the end of the afternoon?
Yes, I'll be here today and tomorrow. Yeah.
We are discussing research friendly at the end?
Yes, exactly. Then it would perfectly time as research friendly, because research friendly is possibly a point where you would put down a discussion about like where's the line, where do we stop, and do we publish every detail or not. Thank you.